I hope you'll be able to hear me. Sometimes I get kind of soft, and you'll have to excuse the tears. This is something I go through every time I give a talk. Sure, Vance can tell you about it. I cried me a bucket of tears, so I'm focused. And it's not anything I can control. It's something from Christ. And later I'll explain what my tears are all about. I do not talk from notes. What I have is a picture of Christ. When we were speaking of the cards and all, you're all going to get one of these. But I asked of the pictures of Jesus, only one per family, because I only brought so many, and you can make copies. I'm going to explain this picture to you later. You'll understand it. You will also get little cards of the Blessed Mother, but you'll each one get one of these, including the children. There's special cards. You'll get some St. Gertrude cards for the souls in Purgatory. I may not have enough of those, I don't know. And if you know the prayer, you don't need to take the card. And I also had some sheets on confession, examination of conscience, and I can assure you, after you read through it, you'll keep the priest busy. Many of them will have to have wheels on meals, because they'll be listening to a lot of confessions. I'm going to start out by telling you a little background on myself. I am not a public speaker. I'm not a mystic. I'm not a visionary. I'm nothing but a warrior. That's what I call myself, a warrior for Christ. 33 years ago when I had my experience, I was a young mother of only 30. I just turned 30 the year before. I am married. I have been married for 42 years to the same wonderful man, Kenneth. I have 3 grown children. Can't lie about my age. I'm 63. I like to tell people I'm only 33 because I died and I got to start all over again. And so I tell people I'm really, 33, but I'm 40. In fact, 63. My oldest daughter is 40, and she told me I had to stop saying that. She says, "Mother, that makes me older than you, and that really is a miracle." I said, I know. But I have a daughter, 40, a son, 39, and another daughter, 37, 5 grandchildren, 4 former grandsons. One of them will be a priest one day. And I have one granddaughter, and I have another grandchild, supposed to be another little boy on the way that's coming in October. When Christ did this thing on me 33 years ago, if he had told me that the day would come I'd be speaking in front of people, I think I'd have told him to sit me in purgatory and leave me there, because I really never wanted to do this. What happened was I had cancer, and I had surgery for the cancer, and they were giving me a medicine that I had a reaction to in the hospital first, and they told me it was nerves and it was hormones and not to worry about it, I'd be fine. The day I went home from the hospital, they gave me an extra dose of it. And I told them at that time that it made me feel strange. And they said, "You're just nervous. Don't worry about it, you'll be fine when you get home." Well, my husband brought me home. At that time, we lived in Houston, Texas. And he brought me home. And he left to go back to work. And my mother-in-law had come in from Louisiana to watch my children because they were little at the time. And after my husband left for work, after Kenneth left, I went in the bedroom to lay down, and I began to really feel even much worse. And my mother-in-law came in, and at that time it was starting the drawing back of the mouth, and I was having some difficulty swallowing and breathing. And I told her I thought I was having a stroke, because I'd heard, sometimes you can have a stroke after major surgery, so I figured I was having a stroke. And so she immediately went and called my husband, and he was just getting back in the office, and he turned around and came straight home. He called the doctor. The doctor said, "Don't wait on an ambulance. Get her to the hospital as fast as you can. She's having some sort of a drug reaction." And I do remember some of the trip to the hospital. Now, my husband is one of these people. He is so cautious, never breaks the speed limit, not 1 mile over it. And I'm telling him, "Kenneth, I'm dying, I can't breathe." I had my head back trying to breathe, my heart was going crazy. and he's driving real slow, and then all of a sudden he realized, this is bad, and he speeded up when we made it to the hospital. He had to carry me in, and to this day, I do remember everything as though it happened yesterday. And as I speak, I will after a while not see you all. I may see someone's guardian angel every now and then, but I actually see heaven. I see everything the way I did. I may be looking at you, but I'm not seeing you, because I relive it. It's like living it over and over again. And when they got me into the emergency room, I can still remember we came in, the door was here, through the emergency room doors. We had to go down a hall, and the doctor said, bring her to this room quick, quick. And they brought me into this emergency room. Well, the door to the emergency room was here, and here was the little room, and the table was this direction. And I remember they put me, my husband laid me on the table, the doctor scooted him out of the room, and I can even describe to this day my robe and the nightgown that I was wearing to a T. And I mean, my memory is kind of bad at times, but I don't forget anything like that. And I remember the doctor, I was trying to tell him I was dying. I could not breathe. My throat had closed up completely. And I remember him pushing my head back. And then he started hitting me on the chest. And I remembered the next thing, I was up at the top of the ceiling. Now, I could see everything. It was neat. And I remember looking, and I could see in the other emergency rooms, and I thought, this is neat. I can see what's going on. A little boy was in there with a broken arm, and a man had, I guess, a heart attack, and they were doing something with him, and I could see everything. I could hear everything the people were saying. And I kept thinking, this is kind of neat. This is really something. And then I looked down, and that's when I saw my body. And I thought, that looks like me. That is me. And I'm thinking, where am I? I'm up here, and there's my body. And then I could see my husband pacing up and down in the hall. And then I heard the doctor say, I'm not going to tell you the words he used, because I just went to confession before I came up here. But he used some very foul language, very horrible stuff. And he was throwing the utensils that they used in the emergency room everywhere and screaming and cursing the nurses. And he started hitting me on the chest, and he was screaming, I'm losing her, and blah, 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 I'm losing her. And everyone was running every which way, and his noises were going off. And I remember thinking, he's going to really hurt me. He was hitting on my chest really hard, and he was pounding it. And then they were doing, I guess, the, whatever it is, where they're trying to breathe into you. And then when he says, I'm losing her, that's when I was just yanked. It's like something just pulled me real fast. And I went through a tunnel. Now, I've always described the tunnel as something dark, because that's how I saw it, with little twinkly lights around me. And as I went through this tunnel of light, little lights around me, I remember something was like pulling, I felt like on my foot, and something else had my hand, because my hand was up. And as I looked up, I knew I had to get away from whatever it was that was trying to hold me back. And then as I looked up, I saw a little pinhole of light, very, very small. And I knew, somehow, my soul knew that in that light was safety. And as I traveled and I got closer and closer to the light, it got brighter and bigger. And when I went into the light was Christ. And we think we know what he looks like. And we think we know how much he loves us. But you will never know how much he truly, truly loves you. He put his arms out, and he took me and he held me. I felt his love penetrating every little cell of my soul. Every part of me was penetrated with that love of him. And then very quietly he said, "Child, I'm going to show you things." He moved his hand. Every time he moved his hand, I saw parts of my life. You can run, you can hide, you can deny that you're wrong and you've done something wrong, but he knows every thought, everything that you've done that's wrong, he knows it. Every time I did something that hurt him, that I felt within my soul his pain and his sorrow. And everything that I did that was good, I felt his joy. But he never stopped loving me, even through the things I did that was wrong. He showed me my first guardian angels. I had 7. At that time, when I was 2, during World War II, we'd have blackouts because we lived on the coast, Gulf Coast, and they would have blackouts. And the civil defense men would run down the street screaming, "Lights out, blackout, blackout," and it'd be, total darkness. It was scary. And being a child of about 2, I was terrified because, so dark you couldn't see your hand in front of your face. And I remember my mother saying, when they do that, everyone is to sit wherever they are, just sit down on the floor and stay still, because you're going to hurt yourself if you move around. And I can remember, I can still see myself in what I was wearing. I was just a toddler. And when they said lights out and the lights went out, I would lean against the wall and I slid down and I sat with my arms around my knees like this, all drawn up, and I was terrified and I was crying. I couldn't see my mother, couldn't tell where she was. And my mother heard me crying and she said, "Sondra, stop crying. You asked Jesus for your angels. Ask him to send you your guardian angel." So very quietly I said, "Jesus, send me my guardian angel." Now I thought she said guardian angel. And for many years I called my angels, because 2 beautiful beings appeared, guardian angels. I called them GA1 and GA2, guardian angel 1 and guardian angel 2. At my death experience, I was shown that I have more than 2, had a total of 7. Yes, I have named them. I all know their names and they stay with me all the time. You all don't know it, but St. Michael is here. And St. Raphael is right here, because everywhere she goes as a Rosa Mystica, St. Raphael is with her. So he is here. St. Michael is usually in front of me. I've asked today not to have, every now and then I've given talks, and all of a sudden a little tiny feather will appear out of everywhere, and just out of nowhere, and I've told the angels, don't do that. It might be people allergic to feathers, so don't do that. But I do have that happen to me quite a bit. I don't know why. I do have special contact with angels. But Jesus showed me my life up to the age of 30. And I was so sorrowful for all the things that I had done that was wrong, whether it was disobeying my mother when I was a child, or being cruel to someone else. Children can be cruel to other children. And all these things, you see, I saw it. And he showed me even the thoughts that I had of anger. How you think these mean thoughts? And it was like I could see what he saw when he saw my thoughts. So I can tell you today that everything that I speak to you of is truth. I am not allowed to speak untruth. If I mislead one of you, I have to answer for it. I have been told by my Lord that I will be judged very harshly because of the knowledge that I have. And I don't disbelieve him at all. And then he told me he was going to show me some things. that I would never forget. And I'll be honest, I have tried and tried to forget. He moved his hand and he showed me hell. I thought when I was growing up and the priest would talk about hell, we had the lost lead priest where I was in Louisiana. I thought, oh, Father Bayard was just trying to scare the Bee Gees out of us. And I didn't think that such a place could possibly exist. It does. It does. Hell, you never get out of there. It's all eternity. It's all eternity. The suffering that's done in hell is like suffering you could never imagine here on this earth. I was so upset because I was watching the souls go in and it's fires, it's horrible fires, and they turn horrible looking. They're just awful. And they come out of the fires and they're cursing God. And they go back in and they come out and they're cursing Him. It never stops. And I remember telling Him, oh Jesus, could I pray for them? And He says, oh child, if you pray for them, it makes their suffering worse because they've already denied me. They had their chance, He said. My soul was screaming. And then He said, child, I will show you the chances that are given to each and every one. He showed me a man. "32 years, 33 years later, I still see this man. I'll never forget. I'm glad I didn't know his name. This man was horrible. He was the most evil type person you could imagine in a million years. He cursed constantly. People would ask him to go to church and he'd curse them and make jokes. And he was cruel to animals. He was a big bully. He was just horrible. And every time someone would say, why don't you, watch your mouth and you're being disgraceful to God, and he'd say, I don't need Him, I am God. Well, he died in a terrible accident, and I watched as his soul detached from the body, and Christ appeared to him last time. Gave him one last chance. And the man did not even recognize Jesus because of the pride he had in himself. And Christ did that. And I've seen that soul for 33 years, watched the expression on the face as he went into hell and to the fires. And I don't want anyone to go there. The worst person in this world, I wouldn't want them in hell because you cannot get out. You are denied seeing God. If you have any sins on your soul, especially mortal sins, please go to confession and get rid of them. Get the absolution from your priest. If you die with that, he might not be too merciful. And he showed me Purgatory. Now, I didn't know anything really a lot about purgatory. I didn't know that it was levels, like, you know, you have the lowest, darkest level, and it goes up into lighter areas, and then it's the brightest, lightest, the souls that are almost completely cleansed and getting ready to be released into heaven. When he showed me purgatory, at the very bottom of purgatory was a great uncle of mine. I saw his soul. And his soul recognized my soul. And he says, remember me in prayer. He was suffering immensely. He died when I was maybe 4 years old, and he committed suicide. Now, I had been taught when I was young that if you committed suicide, you took a life and you never make it to heaven. Well, I was shown by Christ what his mercy is, and that he will be merciful enough. If you end up in the lowest part of purgatory, though, you may stay there for a long, long time. There's no clocks. There's nothing to tell you how long you're there. You have no idea. One moment there is like 1,000 years here on this earth. Uncle Creighton was not Catholic. They did not pray. As you know, most of the Protestants do not pray for their deceased. They think that you're either going to heaven or to hell, but there's no in between. And I can assure you there is an in between called purgatory. Needless to say, when I came back, I had told my mother about seeing Uncle Creighton, and she and I started masses for him, and we prayed for him. And approximately 5 years ago, he finally was released. But you see how many years it took him to get out of there. But it was because there wasn't anyone really praying for him. Once you get to purgatory, you cannot do anything for yourself, period. You cannot pray for yourself. You cannot ask God to be merciful. You can't do anything. Your chance to do the things is right now, here on this earth. Some of us are here for a short time, some for a long time. It's now. It's now. Now is the time. And I do know that the only way that that soul will ever get out of there is through your prayers, your masses. The souls that are not Catholic, every day when the priest says the Mass, and he says, for the souls in purgatory, those who have no one living on this earth or have no family or anyone to pray for them, those prayers are being applied to them. Otherwise, they would probably never get prayers. I just, you know, when I think about purgatory, I know I'll go there. The only thing I've asked of Jesus is, please, don't put me down in the dark area. Just let me have a little bit of light. As the soul is cleansed, it is a fire within the soul. The fires that I saw were in hell. The fires in purgatory is in the soul. It's a cleansing, a purging, a burning within, a burning desire to see God, knowing that soul knows what his sins are. I knew what mine were. Boy, did I know what mine were. The soul knows. You've got to pray for them. Do masses for them. Your stipends that you pay your priest to have masses helps them. They can use it in their work. I'm telling you, have masses said for your deceased family members. If that person, that soul, has already been released and is in heaven, it is never wasted. The prayers will go to ancestors of yours that are still there, or to other souls who have no one to pray for them. They are never wasted. No Mass is ever wasted. My parents have been dead for years. I know that my mother and my dad are already in heaven. Do you know what? I'm still having Masses said for them, because I've got ancestors on my dad's side that were not Catholic. And I'm praying that those masses are being contributed to them, or the rosaries, or whatever I'm doing for them. You gotta realize you've gotta help them. People say, well, I've had a dream of my mother, or my father, or my brother, or whatever. And they looked real sad. And I said, well, they're asking for your prayers. They're not going to come whack you on the head, but they'll do everything else trying to get your attention. They need the prayers. Or they'll say they were radiant and they look beautiful. And I said, well, maybe they're being released, or they've already been released. The soul, when it's released from purgatory, after they're cleansed, they're beautiful, they're radiant. I can't describe it. I'm not allowed to describe what the soul looks like. That's obedience to Jesus. And I will never do anything that's not right by Him. I'll never say anything that's not right by Him. If I get ready to say something that He doesn't want me to reveal, it's like I feel His hand on my mouth and He says, no, child. And I will not say it. I'm totally obedient to Him. Whatever He asks of me, I do. And sometimes, I tell you, it's tough. I have a family and grandchildren. I did have a business that I ran for 10 years out of my home. I just sold it before we moved from the house where we were living into Lake Charles. And I did all this, and I prayed constantly. Prayed constantly. Heaven. Everybody wants to know what heaven's like. I like to tell people that I was on the ground floor, basement floor of heaven. I was allowed to look only as high as these certain angels that were kneeling. They were praising, I guess it was Almighty God, because I could see like a part of a throne, a leg of a throne. But they were huge. They were like 3 stories high, kneeling. And I remember thinking, good heavens, hope they never come to my house because they'd go through the roof. But they were powerful and they were strong. And when I got to the top, Jesus said, look no higher, child. And I didn't look any higher. I wasn't going to do anything wrong. And then you would see beautiful souls just coming from everywhere. And yes, you will know your loved ones. I have people ask me that constantly. Will I know my loved ones? Oh yes, you'll know them. You will know them. This that you have is just the casing. The soul is within. That's what goes back to God. And we will never be joined with our bodies until Christ comes again and all that. And I've already told Him, make me really beautiful, Lord, when that day comes. But anyway, he's just, I'm going to tell you that you do know Him. My grandmother, who had died many, many, many years before, I had never met her because she died way before I was born. And she came just out of nowhere. She was wearing this beautiful, beautiful gown. And I recognized, my soul recognized her. And very quietly she thanked me for naming my oldest daughter after her, because I named my oldest daughter Melanie Marie after her great-great-grandmother. And she reminded me of the rosary and how important the rosary was. And she gave me a message to give to my mother, who was still alive. And needless to say, I gave my mother the message, and my mother said, there is no way you could ever have known that without getting it from the heavenly realm. The Blessed Mother, the music, okay, I gotta tell you about the music and the sound and the smell. There is a music in heaven that's like nothing you can ever hear on earth. I've only heard it twice since I've been here. It's billions, not millions, billions and billions of voices raised in praise and singing. Just joy. You can just feel it. It's all around you, the joy, joy. And there's a sense of smells that's no flowers. You could ever in a million years find flowers that smell like that. No perfumes. It's just, it's heavenly. Heaven sent, I call it. Our Blessed Mother appeared just appeared. One minute I was there talking with Jesus, communicating with him, and the next thing I looked and here she was. This little card that you all are going to get today is as close as I've ever found to how she truly looked in heaven. You all, each one of you are going to get one, including the children. I have enough so all the children can get one, because I want everyone to have one of these. And hopefully, I don't know how many are here, but I brought like 1,500. Normally I bring about 4,000 or 5,000, but because of the weight, and I didn't want to get stopped and told I couldn't bring my suitcase, I had everything in my suitcase. They are blessed. They're miracle cards, okay? I'm not going to tell you too much more about these little cards, but they're very, very special. Anyway, our Blessed Mother appeared, and beside her was St. Michael. We think that we pray and no one's listening. You know, sometimes you think, well, God, where are you? Jesus, where are you? Mother Mary, where are you? Your prayers are being heard. There is not one cry of a prayer, even from a child to the very elderly, that is not being heard in heaven. Just because it's not acted upon immediately does not mean it's not heard. If I've learned nothing else, I've learned this. Almighty God looks at your soul, at your eternal soul. He is not going to grant you something that is not good for the eternal soul. And I've learned that because 2 years later I had cancer again, very serious kind. Most of my forehead up here is missing. That's why I wear bangs. I have a big, deep indentation in my skull due to a melanoma. And I'm very lucky to be here today because the doctor told me it was very possible to come out somewhere else in my body, but I've never worried about it. I'm still going 9 to nothing. At the time, I told Christ, because I made a promise to him, I said, well, Lord, it's your will, not mine. I'm still here. I'm still here. Because the Almighty God looked at my eternal soul and said, hey, that gal's got some work to do. And I'm going to make her work. She's going to earn her way to heaven. He hadn't let up on me yet. Saint Michael. Oh, I love him. I love him. He's so special. I laugh about St. Michael. Now, he's big. Big muscles. Muscles in his leg, muscles in his arms, muscles across his chest. He has this, when he straightened up, because he was beside the Blessed Mother, he wears, the armor he wears is like some sort of a mesh. I don't know how to explain it, but it's so like a silverish, goldish looking stuff. It changed colors, gold and silver. And I don't know why I knew that nothing could penetrate that. And he does have blondish brown hair, and he's got blue eyes, the most beautiful eyes I've ever seen. And I looked at him, and I thought, man, he's a hunk. And I still talk about St. Michael the hunk, because he was built. And I remember thinking, I want you on my side. I want you on my side. He's been with me ever since. He travels with me. I have a whole load around me whenever I travel, between my angels and then St. Raphael traveling with the Blessed Mother and St. Michael. And, you know, I have all of this with me wherever I go. And I laugh about it. It gets kind of crowded sometimes in my car. I tell them that sometimes they have to fly because I want them to keep their pilot's wings up, you know. I said, guys, you need to fly. And if I told you all the things that have happened when flying, things on the airplane that would be very scary. The first time it ever happened was on my way to the conference that they were having in Washington, D.C. for pro-lifers. It's probably been 6 or 7 years ago. I went with a group of teenagers from another town, and we hit some extremely turbulent weather, horrible. Most of these children had never flown before. Most of their parents had never flown before. And they all got panicky, and of course they meet me, Miss Sondra, are we going to crash? I said, no, we're not. I'm sitting there doing my rosary. No, we're not going to crash. Y'all just relax and just do your rosary. Oh, Miss Sondra, we're so scared. Talk to your guardian angels. I said, okay. One of the kids had a little board bag out and thought, oh, Lord, I guess I better ask. So quietly I said, angels, I need help. Steady the plane, get rid of the bumpiness, the kids are scared. I told them, I said, y'all, it's going to be okay. The plane just got real steady. And one of the kids looked out and he said, oh, look! And on the wing was this beautiful form of an angel. And it was on both wings of the plane, and the kids saw that and they have never forgotten that. And I told them, I said, you see, you have to ask, but always say thank you. I do see angels. That's one of the special little things that God has granted me for the time being, is to be able to see angels and to see people's guardian angels and to communicate with them. St. Michael's special. I really think that our churches should go back to doing the St. Michael prayer before Mass or after Mass. I think it's really important. And I'm asking you all to please start instigating that. I know the priest here. I've seen every one of them. I can tell you what, we've got some holy little priests here. Every single one of them. And some beautiful sisters. And don't y'all ever forget how much we need priests. Over and over, I tell people, you don't understand. We're not getting the number of priests like we used to. We're not getting the numbers of sisters and nuns like we used to. Many people are so caught in the material world that that does not interest them. I had many that were just like me, wanted to jump everyone because all the stuff came out about our priest and the abuses. And I told them, you do not have the right to stand in judgment of another human being. Some of these priests have been accused of things that they did not do. Some were accused of things from 40 years ago. I know that they made their confession and were sorry for it, probably have never done another thing wrong, but they're being condemned and persecuted and hung on the cross. And I know that people, many of you may have had children that were abused. I had a son. And he had a priest try something with him. But you know what? It made him a stronger person and a stronger Catholic. And I tell you what, I couldn't stand and say I condemn them all. I don't. I pray for them. And I ask you all to pray for them. The priest that was just recently murdered. Pray for him. God is merciful. He is merciful. And if you don't pray for them, shame on you. There will be a day, I'm telling you, there will be a day that you want someone to pray for you and you're going to be sitting right there and there's nobody praying for you. And I can tell you about our priest. Only a priest can hear your confession and give you absolution. Only a priest. Only a priest can take that body and that blood, that bread and that wine into the body and blood of Christ. No matter what a priest does, their hands are so holy. You don't understand it, but I saw what happens when a priest is ordained, what is shown to me from heaven that comes down unto them. And I love my priest. I pray for priests. I pray constantly for them. Because when I'm dying, I hope he's there to hear my confession and give me absolution. And let me tell you what, if you don't think that that's not the body and blood of our Lord on this altar, think again. Think again. It is Him. It's not bread and it's not wine. And I often tell people, adoration, when the Blessed Sacrament is out, you kneel before Him. If you cannot kneel, then sit and bow your head. You kneel. He will make you kneel eventually. I can't, if He wants me to kneel and pray, I can't pray with any person and stand. Period. I'm not allowed to. When I start, I've tried it a couple of times, and I get this on my shoulder, and I go down on my knees, and very quietly I hear His voice, our Lord's voice. And He tells me, kneel, child. It's a sign of humility and obedience to Him. And when I kneel, He kneels with me. He's praying with me. When I'm praying for these people, Christ is right there. The Blessed Mother reminded me of the Rosary again. She told me and showed me all the time. She heard my prayers, every prayer I'd ever uttered to her. I never knew Christ until my death experience. Why? He was just the guy on the cross. I always had a special love for the Blessed Mother from the time I was real little. I made a mistake. I've always felt like I wished I hadn't asked Him this question. But I asked Him when they scourged Him, was it very bad? Because you see, I see the crucifixes with a little bit of blood on the hands, feet, and side, and head, and I thought, was it really bad, Lord? Well, He gave me a flash what He looked like on the cross. And this little picture is what He looked like. And then He proceeded to tell me about His beating. He said that they used bones and stones and shells. Some were sharpened and some were curved. And when they would hit Him and they would yank, they would rip His skin, and it would cut down even to the tendons in there and the muscle. That even the soles of His feet were ripped apart, and that there was no place in His body that wasn't ripped and torn. What you all don't know is that Jesus had no covering, nothing on Him. Nothing on Him when they beat Him. And then they put his robe back on Him, and then they march Him up to the hill where they're going to nail Him to the cross. And he said the pain was so excruciating. I'm sorry. It was so horrible, y'all. We think we can't suffer. You know, we just go and say, well, I want a pill for this or that. And I can't stand the suffering. You can be surprised at what you can suffer. And when they started to nail His hand, first hand to the cross, His mother asked Almighty God to please cover Him so that He wouldn't be humiliated anymore. And God let her cover Him. The cloth you see around Him was the cloth that she had wrapped Him in as a baby. And that's what was on Him. And all of this He suffered for you and I out of love. Love. And it wasn't the nails that held Him on that cross either. It was His love for each one of us. Because He knew when they hung Him up there, He could have said any time, Father, I see that what they're going to do. I don't want to hang up here. I know how bad people are going to be. But He didn't. He stayed there out of love for you and I. Out of love for you and I. You just never know that kind of love. I thought I knew what love was with my children because I love my children so much. But God showed me that His love is even more than the love that I had for my children. Then he said that he was going to show me things, and some things that I would never forget. And I wished he hadn't, and these were some of the things that I tried to forget, besides trying to forget about hell. And he showed me the abortions, and he showed me babies being destroyed up to the time of their birth, and I saw billions of babies, and I couldn't understand it. And I kept asking him, well, why? What are you showing me, Lord? And he said, this is what mankind thinks of my gift of life, my Father's gift of life. And, you know, it was 3 years before the Wade vs. Roe that I had my death experience, and it wasn't until that Wade vs. Roe came out that I understood, and I started trying to really push against abortion, and I got doors slammed in my face. I had people tell me I was crazy. I had women tell me it was their own business, it was their bodies, they could do what they wanted to. I went nose to nose with doctors and would not give up. I kept telling them it was wrong, and I said, you all will kill until the child is ready to be born. It's wrong. That is a gift of life. And I was told the woman's right to her own body. That's what I was given. I had wrote letters to congressmen and senators up in Washington asking them to repeal that law, and I got letters back, and I wish to this day I had them. When we moved from Houston to Louisiana, I had friends helping me pack, and they accidentally threw away the letters that I'd gotten back, but this was what the letters would say. Dear Mrs. Abrahams, I know that you are concerned about this abortion law, Wade vs. Roe, but you have to understand the women of America have spoken. They want the abortions, and they have the right to abortions. And I'd write back, Dear Senator, since when does that woman own her body? God made it, God created it. Only God can take it. I'm sorry, you're wrong. And I'd get another letter back. And then after that, they would just stop answering. I guess they went and filed 13 or whatever. I had a stack, y'all, like this, of letters. I had been fighting abortion for 33 years because I started before Wade vs. Roe. I know that's why people thought I was crazy, because I was talking about abortion way back then. You have to speak out, people. You can't let the neighbor next door do it. It takes every single one of us. And abortions are still going on. They haven't quit. What I know about Christ showed me about souls and little souls that are coming into this world. That at the time of conception, the soul enters that body. God puts that little soul there. That was what my argument was. There is a soul there. If there's a soul there, it's a person. It's not a piece of tissue. It is a living human being. And I fought that. I'm still fighting that. And Jesus showed me that at the time that a baby, a little soul enters a body, that the guardian angel is assigned also for that little soul at that time. And that, say a baby is born with some kind of mental handicap or physical handicap or something, do you know that God had plans for that child? It may be born that way, but in His eyes it's perfect. I've heard people say, well, that, you know, my doctor said I have to have an abortion because this baby has spinal bifida or something. And I'll say, no, it's perfect. God sees it as perfect. These children are brought in this world to teach us love. There was a young boy that's still at my old church at St. Teresa's in Sulphur, where I was living, and he has Down syndrome. And Rocky is the most affectionate, loving kid you could ever imagine. When he would see me, and he still does it, wherever he sees me, if I happen to go to St. Teresa's and he spots me, comes clear across from wherever he is, and he grabs me and just hugs me. And he says, oh, I love you, Miss Sondra. And I'll say, I love you too, Rocky. And when Father lets him serve, sometimes doing daily Mass as the altar server, as an altar boy, I like to call them altar boys. because we need those altar boys back up on the altar too. I know I probably make the enemies, but there's special places for women and girls, and it's not there. We get our future priests from these little altar boys. But anyway, he serves, and when he does, he is so humbled. He knows that's the body and blood of Christ, and I think to myself, if only people that have everything there could understand what this child with his Down syndrome understands. See, God gives him special gifts, and he's perfect. There is no imperfect child born in this world. Everyone is perfect. God has things for each one of them. They're here to teach us love, compassion. Some are here for just a short while. But you have to understand that there's no mistakes made. Heaven does not make mistakes. God does not make mistakes. I was shown the euthanasia. It's happening right now. It's happening right now. It's happening in a lot of nursing homes and hospitals. People say, how do you know? I know what happened with my mother-in-law. They say, oh, well, this person doesn't want to live. They want to die. Well, just pray for them. That person, if they realized what they were doing and how long they were going to stay down there in purgatory for that, they wouldn't do it. They'd offer up all their suffering. My father, who became a convert before he died, suffered so immensely from cancer. He had bone cancer, and he just shriveled up. There was nothing left to him, and the pain was so intense that even the morphine patches that they put on him didn't even touch it. And he would say over and over, do you see them? Do you see them? And he was seeing souls, I'm sure, or angels, or maybe some of his ancestors. And I asked God to be so merciful on him, and because of his suffering, he didn't have that long in purgatory because he suffered so much here on earth. See, that's what y'all don't understand, and I do. So I always tell the Lord, if you want me to suffer, I'll suffer, because I just want the shortest time I can get in purgatory. I want to get back up there in heaven. Because one day, if Char Vance and I are up there, you talk about rocking, that heaven's going to rock. With Char lives up there, you know, I can tell you what, it's going to be one fun place up there. But, you know, my father-in-law became a convert before he died. My father-in-law had never been baptized in any church either, and he had always degraded the Catholic Church. In fact, his father had been I think it was a Mennonite minister, and quite a minister. He had a lot of women on the side. That was my husband's great-grandfather, great-grandfather, and my father-in-law just always ran down the Catholic Church. My mother-in-law was Catholic, and my husband was raised Catholic. And before he died, I would go over every day, and my father-in-law and mother-in-law called me their daughter. They never had a daughter, and I was the only daughter-in-law, so I was a daughter that they never had. And I loved them dearly. I called them Mom and Dad, and I had my mother and my daddy and Mom and Dad. So I felt like I was doubly blessed, you know, two sets of parents. And before he died, he had asked me to tell him again about heaven and Jesus. And it shocked me because he had never really asked. He knew that I'd had this experience, and also I was sitting there beside his chair telling him about heaven and Christ and his love for each and every one of us. And he began to weep. And I said, oh, Dad, do I have you upset? He says, no, I will never see Jesus. And I looked at him and I said, what do you mean you'll never see him? He says, well, I've always been such a sinner all my life, and he's not going to want me, and I've never been baptized, and he won't want me, and I'll never see heaven, and I'll probably go straight to hell. And I said, oh, well, wait a minute. You're the one he wants, not the goody two-shoes like me. He wants the sinners. I said, what do you want, Dad? Tell me. He says, Sondra, I'd love to become Catholic before I die. needless to say, my mother-in-law came in from grocery shopping because I was staying with him. When I told her she dropped groceries everywhere, she said, "How did you do that? I've been praying for this for years." I said, "Mom, it's been your prayers that's got him there where he is." And he had mellowed so much after my husband and I died. And he, married, I mean, and he had told, I don't know, there was, sometimes I feel like I'm dead. He had told my mother-in-law, he said, "Sondra has this special thing about her because where he had been a real cold person, he became a very warm person. Where he would curse, he stopped cursing. The only thing, and he had been an alcoholic for years, and he quit drinking. After I gave him some little words of advice, he quit cold turkey and lived a nice life till then. So I called the priest, and I asked him what we could do, and he said, "Look, I'll come over, we'll do everything at once." And my father came over, my dad was there, and when they finished doing the baptism, did everything at once, one thing after another, my father-in-law was crying, and I could hear the millions of angels singing, the rejoicing that was coming from heaven. And I was going, "Do y'all hear it? Do you hear it?" And no one but me could hear it. And I was hearing the angels, and I said, "You see, a sinner that was lost was back in the flock." And he died. He was buried out of the Catholic Church. My husband has a first cousin that is a priest in Oklahoma City. Stephen came down and did the Mass. And he was buried from the Catholic Church. And I am so glad. You see, you can't ever give up on your prayers. If you have a family member that is not going to church or is doing something that's not right, pray for them. Don't preach at them. Pray for them. Keep on praying for them. Don't stop. I prayed for 40-something years, well, more than that, for my dad to become a convert. He was Methodist. He never went to his church, but he was more Catholic than a lot of Catholics. He gave Mother money every week to give to the collection. He made sure we went to catechism, knew our catechism. He drove us to confession and sat out in the car. We couldn't sneak out. And he'd wait for us to go to confession. And I prayed my prayer from the time I was a small child. I used to pray St. Jude. "St. Jude, make my daddy Catholic. Make my daddy Catholic." Well, he did become Catholic. So I have two in my family, my father-in-law and my dad, that both became converts. And I am so thankful for that. See, I can't ever give up. You never give up on a soul. No matter what direction it's going in, you pray for that person and that soul. You'll never know how those prayers will help or where it will lead you to, or that soul. Look at all the saints. My goodness, some of them were really pretty bad people. But somebody was praying for them, usually a mother or someone, and they got turned around and ended up becoming priests and brothers and sisters, and they are now saints. I'm going to tell you a little something too about saints real quick. There are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of saints. I don't know how I know so many saints. Some of them go back centuries. And when I'm praying with someone, I ask for the saints and the holy angels that can come and be there to pray at the same time with me. See, I never think I can do anything on my own, and it's nothing of me. It's always Christ. I give him credit for everything. And I will hear them give me their name, and I will say their name out loud and thank them for being there. And they all gather around because they're also there praying. And I tell people there are so many saints. We're all into the newer saints right now, but there are many older saints that are still around and still helping us out. I have a special love of St. Francis of Assisi because I have a special thing with animals, and especially birds and especially doves. I don't know where you are, Sharon, but yes, I saw my dove today. I don't know if y'all normally have doves around here, but before I give a talk, Christ always sends a dove right in front of me. So this is his way of saying, "I'm here with you, child." I have hundreds of doves that come to my yard, all kinds of doves. And wherever I go, doves appear. I've got this thing with doves. I've asked you all to pray for our priest and his sisters. And I'm going to tell you, We need sisters and nuns. We need brothers. Why? We need people that can teach our children the catechism. It's wonderful having lay people do it. But by golly, I've never seen a nun that hadn't put a little bit of pressure on those kids to learn their catechism. And thank you, ladies. I love each and every one of them. I'm glad you're here. We need that. We definitely need that. I'm going to talk a little bit on angels. I don't know why I'm allowed to see them. I don't see them constantly. If I did, I'd be blind because they're very bright. And they have a real glow around them. And why do I see guardian angels? I don't know. I've seen children's guardian angels today. And in fact, I usually can get names. And I love the angels. They're very good to help me out. Christ showed me one thing when I had my death experience, and I never forgot it. It was a good lesson for me, and I will never forget it as long as I live. At that time that I had, before my death experience, we were living in Houston, and at my death experience, we were still living in Houston. And I had gone shopping. It was the Christmas just before January, before my death experience, and it was cold, really nasty. And I'd been shopping all day last week before Christmas. I had all these packages. And I'm muttering to myself, I'm coming out, it was rainy and nasty and cold, just a drizzling rain. And I come out the doors of Foley, this big shopping center store. And outside the door, standing in the cold rain, was a man in an old tattered, torn coat. And he was shivering like this, and his ears were all red, and his face was red. And as I walked by him, he said, "Lady, can you spare $1 for me to get something hot to drink?" And I looked at him and I said, "Oh, get lost, you old wino." And I walked on, got in my car, and came home. Jesus showed me that that was not a wino. It was an angel. And he said, "Where was your compassion, child?" I learned a lesson that day. From that day forward, I never passed up a homeless person that I didn't give them a little bit of money. Maybe it's $3, maybe it's $5. I have been told by people, "You're so stupid. They're probably going to go out there and buy some cheap wine." And you know what my answer is? That's not for me to judge. Let God judge them one day. That's between He and them. I never pass them up. These little cards that are blessed by my priest, also blessed by our mother, when you get them, you'll find a faint scent to them, and everyone says it smells like roses. I have nothing to do with that. What I did, I kept trying to find what she looked like. In Mary's Call, I would order these little cards for St. Gertrude to pray for the souls in Purgatory, because I'm determined people are going to pray for them. They said, "Sondra, we just got these little cards in there from Medjugorje." Didn't even know what Medjugorje was, y'all. See, I stayed in my home and I prayed. I prayed rosaries and prayed for people. I've never had time to read. I've got hundreds of holy books that I've never read. The only thing that I ever do read is the Bible, because sometimes Christ will speak to me and I need to look at what He's trying to tell me in the Bible. I love the Word of God. I don't have time to read. I don't see TV. I don't get Mother Angelica. I don't have cable. The only time I ever saw Mother Angelica was when I was at someone else's house. I don't watch television. Don't have time for it. I pray. I pray. I had never heard of Medjugorje. First time someone mentioned it, I said, "Medji who?" And they just like Chor, and they said, "Medjugorje, have you heard of it?" "No, that's where Our Lady's appeared." "Well, I didn't know that. I thought she only appeared at Lourdes and Fatima and La Salette. I didn't know about this other place." Well, Mary's Call said they were going to send me with my order of St. Gertrude cards, about 5 of these little cards. I said, tell us what you think about him, Sondra. When I got my order, there was, I feel like there was close to 50 in the order. So I called him, and I was so excited. I couldn't hardly talk. I said, oh, I can't wait, Called him, and I said, look, I need to pay y'all some money. You sent me extra ones. And they said, nah, bless Mother, and said, you know what to do with them. What I did was I took them to my priest, had them blessed, and I asked her to do something special. So when I gave them to the children, speaking of children, I was speaking of little children at my church, that they would remember her and know that she was their mother, that she was always there for them. I brought these to church after Mass. I went outside, and as the little ones came out, I was giving them the Mary card. They noticed the scent. Miss Sondra, these smell good. No, they don't. But Miss Sondra, they do smell good. No, they don't. But Miss Sondra, they have a scent to them. And I took it, smelled it. I don't smell it. It's not for me. And one of the mothers said, you mean you don't smell this? And I said, no. And very quietly I hear a lady, child, you asked. It's for all my children. Hey, you guys, y'all are her children too. So, I made a promise then and there. Mother Mary, I'm going to give these out till everyone in the world has one. Regardless of their religion. I don't care. I'm not trying to convert them. I just want them to know her. I am well on my way. I've got them in the Philippines, Germany, Australia, China. A lady came to my talk in California. She is from China. Her family was there. She said, could you please help me get these cards to my family? You know, China complicates stuff. What I did is I had her write the address, and I put them in there. I asked Blessed Mother to do her thing. She does. I'm doing my thing. I can't tell you what her thing is, but I can assure you, when I get them out, I say, Mother Mary, do your thing. And she is. She's brought young people back to the church. A man that had been away from the church in confession, not been in confession over 40 years, he got her, he started crying. He went to the confession. Father said they were in there almost 3 hours hearing his confession. The priest came out in tears. He said, Sondra, do you know that because of your caring, it's her, it's not me, it's her. He said, this man made a confession after 40 years, and he said he had some real mortal sins. And he says, now don't you understand? Because of the work you're doing, souls are being brought back to Christ. That's all I want. I didn't want to give these talks. When I eat out, told you I give these out everywhere. When I eat out, my husband now has given up. He lets me do the tip. Wrapped up in the tip. One of these cards. When I first started doing this, I was also giving out miraculous medals. And you see how she's working now, people. She's good. Oh, she's good. She stays on my case all the time. She never leaves. That's between she and Jesus. They drive me crazy sometimes. We ate out at a seafood place at Lake Charles where my husband and I used to like to eat. And when I first started doing it, I put the miraculous medal in with her in the tip. And we got up. Well, this place is so busy that, I mean, if you just move your chair, they're there cleaning the table off immediately for the next people. And as we got up and started to walk off, the little waitress right there, and she grabbed it, and when she did, the medal fell out. And it hit the floor. And she reached down, she picked it up, and she said, oh, lady, you dropped something. And I said, oh, no, that's for you, because it was blessed. And I said, might find something else, too. I said that under my breath, kind of quietly. We walk out. 10 months, it was either 10 months or a year later, I used to go to a nursing home and do rosaries every week with the people in the nursing home. Every person in the nursing home, whether they were Pentecostal or what, all the old people in there had one of these in their room, and they fought over them. If another new patient came in, a person into the nursing home and took their Mary card, they called her the Mary Beautiful card. That's what they called her, the Mary Beautiful card. They didn't want anyone to take her. You see how she touches their hearts? She's not out there saying, hey, all y'all become Catholic. She's touching their hearts. She's letting them know she's there. Well, I was leaving, and here comes a little nurse's aide stopped me and asked me for one of the cards. She says, everyone's gotten one of these but me. And she said, all the patients in here have them, but I don't have one. So I was handing her one, and I heard a woman hollering down the hall, lady, wait, lady, wait. And I turned around and think, oh, is she talking to me? And here comes this woman zooming down the hall. I'm so glad there were nobody out in wheelchairs, because I'm sure she would have knocked them, no telling where. And she gets to me, and she just stops, and she said, can I see that card? And I said, well, sure. And I handed it to her, and she smelled it, and she said, it's you. It is you. And I'm going, oh, dear, what did I do? Because, see, I'm kind of bold. If Christ has taught me nothing else, he's taught me to go out and not be afraid, because he's with me. I have to trust him. And she said, she pulls out this medal on a chain, a little miraculous medal, and she said, well, you don't remember me, but it was you that ate, and she named the place. She said, you gave me this medal. And I said, yes. And she said, she pulls out the pocket, it's kind of tattered, and this little card. And I said, yeah, I have a habit of doing that. And she said, well, she said, I want to tell you what's happened to me since then. And I said, okay. She says, well, first off, I had no idea who this was or the medal. But she said, you know what? She said, she's so beautiful. And she said, I find myself doing the prayer on the back, Smarari. And she said, I try to put it down. And she said, a few minutes later, go back, pick it up again, say the prayer. She said, I was living with a man that I wasn't married to. She said, I finally asked someone where I worked, did they know who this was? And who this was on the medal. And they said, well, yes, that's the Blessed Mother, the person she asked how to be Catholic. And she said, where can I find information on her? And they said, well, go to a Catholic bookstore, which she did. Well, I have one in Lake Charles Crossroads. She got a book on her. She read it. She got a rosary. Started teaching herself how to do the rosary. She said, I want you to know that because of you taking the time to leave this card and this medal, she says, I kicked the man out. I no longer live with him. She says, I realized it was sinful. And she says, I got a much better job. And she says, I thought you'd want to know I am now in the RCIA class becoming a Catholic. Could I please have another one of those cards? She said, do you think that I'm ever afraid of handing these out? Never. Amen. On the airplane, all around me, they get her. And I tell them, you don't have to accept it unless you want to. I'm not going to force it on anyone. Do you know that nobody ever refuses her, including a Church of Christ minister? They came to my home. I used to do embroidery and monogramming on clothing, and I did all these uniforms. I do patches for companies, their logo and the people's name. And what I did is, at that time, I had little tiny miraculous medals. This is just a medal of Medjugorje, but I had the little bitty miraculous medal, little tiny ones. And what it is, have them blessed. And when I would sew a logo on a uniform, I kiss it and I put it in between the backing and the back. And I sewed on and I said, Mother Mary, bring this one to your son. That's how I taught her. Mother Mary, bring this to your son. Bring this one to your son. And do your thing, Mother Mary. Well, you have to understand that a lot of these men, some of them were Masons, and I knew it. Christ reveals things to me constantly, so I'm never shocked by anything. And they all had married cards. They kept them on their computers because they thought she was so pretty. And I'd go in their offices and they'd say, "Oh, Sondra, I'm so glad to see you." They'd hug me and everything. I'm like, man, if you knew it was over your heart, right over their heart. You cared about when I'm going, oh, you know, I thought, gee, I could probably lose all my business that way. Do you know that when they would send a uniform back and they maybe the uniform was worn out and they needed a new patch and they'd take that one off, they'd always send the patch back? Do you know that the medals never fell out? They were still right there, and I'd take it out and put in another one. Do you think that I'm kind of bold? Yes. Because I laugh about it. This minister that came by, he came by to get some embroidery work done, and he walked in my living room. Well, at that time, the house that I was living in, I had a little corner. My husband said, "A little? My eye, you took up almost half the living room." Well, I had my prayer corner there. I had my statues and a picture of Jesus, and I'd go and kneel because I burned a candle. I burned a candle 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They never go out because I'm petitioning heaven constantly. They're blessed, the big tall blessed metal candles. And so in that living room, when you walked in and you turned, that's the first thing that knocked your head off. Well, over my door on the outside, I also had blessed metals and crosses and so on. So when they came in, they would read it by first the sign by the Blessed Mother statue outside that said, "Let the little children come to me, God is pro-life." So immediately anyone that comes knows that I'm pro-life. And so this man comes in, and he looks over and his eyes go, like this, wow. And he said, "No, what is all that?" And I said, "Oh, that's all my blessed things." I said, "Jesus and Mary and a few saints." And he keeps looking, and he keeps taking a step, one step at a time, until he's getting a little bit further away because he wants to really see it. And I said, "Well, just go on over and look." So he does. And he said, "Yeah." He said, "Y'all worship these statues." I said, No, I don't worship them." I said, "I respect them, and I pray for them to intercede." And I explained about the Blessed Mother and everything, and I could see changes, very slow changes in him. And I said, "Well, look, I'm going to give you something." I said, "You don't have to take it." So I gave him one of these, and he said, "Oh, she is so beautiful." And I said, "Well, yeah, this is the thing that you say that we worship, and all this." I said, "This is Jesus' mother." I said, "I respect her and I love her because she is the mother of Christ." She said, "Yes." And I said, "You know what? Jesus won't refuse her anything." So I said, when I'm really hitting the wall and he's not answering me, I go to her and say, "Oh, Mother, would you, talk to your son a little bit?" And she's good. She never lets me down. Well, you know what? He took the card. And as we were standing there, he is saying something about, well, in our church, when you do something bad, you go straight to hell. If you're good, you go straight to heaven. And he was going out the door, and I said, "Oh, whoa, just a minute. It doesn't work that way." And he said, "What do you mean?" And I said, "Well, there is an in-between called Purgatory." And he said, "What? Never heard of it." I said, "Well, hold on. Let me get my Bible." Now, I'm not a scholar. I'm not a theologian. But I know where the places are in the Bible that talks about purging, cleansing, fire within, so on. So I showed him, and he said, "Well, we don't even have those in our Bible. We don't have any of that." And I said, "Yeah, I know." I said, "It was removed." And I explained why they removed it and so on. And he kind of thought about it. About 3 days later, he calls and he said, "Can I come by for a little bit? I'd like to talk to you some more." I said, "Sure." So he comes back. The first thing he asked, "Those cards of Mary, could I maybe have a couple more?" And I said, "Sure." I said, "Someone need them?" He said, "Well, there's something special about these cards." And I go, "Sure is." And I said, sure. He said he'd like to give one to someone that was in his church that was real sick. And I'm thinking, boy, what's this person going to think he's giving the card to the Blessed Mother? We talked again on Purgatory. On Friday, he shows up again, unannounced at my door, to ask me more about Purgatory. And he began, I could see, it was like a light. You see, I can't judge him because he doesn't know. It's not his fault. And so I gave him, I think, the Scott Hahn book on Surprise by the Truth. I never stopped working. I had a copy of it. I said, here, you take this and read it, and I think you'll understand a little bit more. That was on Friday. Monday, a lady calls me, that was a friend, and she knows about my statues and about Purgatory because she had come and heard my talk, but she also happened to be a member of his church. And she calls and she's laughing on the phone. She said, Sondra, did Minister so-and-so come to your church by any chance? I mean, your house? And I said, yeah, why? Did you talk to him about Purgatory? Yep, talked to him about Blessed Mother too. I thought so. She said, there's a bunch of shocked people in our church. I said, oh, why? She said, he gave a sermon on Purgatory. Thank you, Mother. Thank you. Now, I had never heard any more. I don't know where the man is still. He probably got shipped out to Timbuktu somewhere. And who knows? He may be becoming a Catholic, and I just don't know it. I don't stop. I don't have time. I'm on a crusade for Jesus. He's given me so much time to do this work in. And I don't have time to stop. As he told me one day, child, this is no time to stumble. When I am so exhausted and I'm bent down because my phone rings constantly, if it's not my home phone, it's my cell phone. Sometimes they're both ringing at the same time. People needing help. My doorbell is ringing. Someone coming in for asking for prayers. I never stop. I pray for others. That is my job. That is my mission. I'm an intercessor between here and heaven. I get so tired sometimes and I tell him, Lord, this is too much. I can't handle anymore. I am so tired. I don't have any strength left. You know what I get? I'd be all bent over and I am getting stoop-shouldered. I don't know this from the cross I carry or what. But I feel his hand and he pushes me straight up like this. And very quietly he says, child, I'm your strength. Buddy, I can go 90 nothing again. He never abandons me, and he never abandons any of us. Even in our loneliest times when you think he's not there, he is. I have given out these cards everywhere. Like I said, even on the airplane. God always sets people around me that kind of need this. There was a couple that really needed it when I was coming in from Houston to Minneapolis. And the lady told me later, she got ready to get her stuff together. She said, you know, I think God put you here for us today. Guess what? I had Mary cards. And I give these. I came back from a talk in Mississippi, and I stopped in Denham Springs or someplace to get cold drink, and I was going to use the restroom. And as I came in, I was going to head for the restroom first, and I passed. There was a man sitting there all alone, and he looked like a member of, excuse me, Jesus, Hell's Angels. That's what he looked like, a bandito or whatever it is. He had this scarf on his head and long hair and tattoos all over him, and he was wearing a vest, and he looked really rough. And, oh, time's up. As I went by him, I'm sorry, I did begin. How many more minutes? 0. As I walked by him, our mother told me to give him a card. She said, give him my card, child. And I was scoot in the bathroom, and I said, no, Mother, I'm not doing that. This man may get up and knock me over, you know. I don't think I'm going to do that. As I walk back out, as I go by him again, she tells me again. I said, Mother Mary, don't do this to me. I go and get my drink, get the straw. She says, child, when it's firm, I listen. Give him a card. I walk back to this man, and I don't know whether to stand back like this, you know, I'm a little scared. And I say, sir, I said, you can refuse this, but I would like to give it to you. He takes this card, and he's got his head down, and he says, oh, it's a Blessed Virgin Mary. And I'm going, my goodness, he knows. And then he holds it and puts it by his heart, and then he has it up like this, and he kisses it, and of course when he does, he smells the beautiful scent. And he looks up, and tears are running down his face. He said, lady, you don't know how much I needed this. You see, we want to judge, always want to judge, and we can't. So this is what I do. I give these out everywhere. I did want to tell y'all that very briefly, I know it won't be on, that's okay. Very briefly, I want to tell you, I can't do this work alone. I come here as a soldier and warrior for Christ. I need your help. Each one of you has been set on this earth on a mission. Our priests, from the time they were conceived in their mother's wombs, were chosen to be priests. These nuns, it's the same way. Our brothers, the same way. You don't understand that God had everything planned in advance. Each one of you has a job to do, whether it's visiting in the nursing home or whatever. I can't pray and do all the praying on my own. I need help. You say you don't have time for prayers. I hear this all the time. I don't have time. Oh, well, I ran a business, did everything, and I still had time to pray. Yes, I get very little sleep because he doesn't allow me to have a lot. I sleep, I average 3.5, if I'm lucky, 4 hours of sleep a night. I'm awakened continuously for prayers. I'm touched like this on the face, and I wake up and I start praying. Every time you say a prayer, it could be somebody that's going to be released from purgatory or whatever. Starting tonight. Thank you. Every single one of you is going to be awakened at least once tonight. At least once. You will hear me say a prayer. I don't care if it's an Our Father, a Hail Mary, a Glory Be, or all three. Out of that prayer will come someone that needs this prayer to get out of purgatory. Be someone that may be ready to take their own life. That'll save them from doing that. Maybe someone who's dying that will help them. It may be, you just don't know, maybe someone in deep sorrow from losing a loved one. You will never know what it is. And the reason why I know y'all will be awakened, and if you're not tonight, I can assure you tomorrow night I'm going to get you twice. When I shook my head, and you may have heard me say thank you, every one of your guardian angels appeared just for that instance and shook their head yes. They know what their job is. They're going to wake you up. And I tell people you will never miss that sleep. You'll go right back to sleep after you say your prayer. I don't think I can't do it with working with the angels. I've got good connections up there. This picture of Christ, it is a miracle picture. I looked for years trying to find one that looked like my beloved Jesus, and I couldn't find one, and I went even to Mexico trying to find one there, and this went on for years and years, and I kept saying, Lord, how can I tell people what you look like and what you suffered if I can't show them? One night in adoration I was weeping. I was laying in front of him and crying, and I said, Jesus, you know, I can't show them. And very quietly he said, trust me, child. The next morning I go to morning mass. As I walk outside, my friend stops me and he said, Sondra, I need to show you something. He pulls out this picture of Jesus. And he said, is this what he looked like? And I tell you what, I lost it right there. A friend of his went somewhere and they were remodeling a church. And they had the crucifix down and kind of over to the side, almost in a little side room. And the guy, as he walked by, just took out his camera. And he thought it was on impulse, but God's in control of everything. And he snapped a picture of the crucifix. Now, the crucifix he took the picture of was like you always see, the head down, a little bit of blood on the hands, feet, and side. When it was developed, this is what came out. So it is a miracle picture. There's an arc of light. The hands, the guy didn't get the hands and feet, which he was disturbed that he didn't. But God wanted you all to see what he wanted you to see, which was the beating that Christ did. There is an ugly face in here. Satan always shows his face. I know him quite well. I don't like him. He doesn't like me, and so we get along real well together. He never lets up on me. He goes after me constantly, but I wear armor. The strongest, most powerful armor I can, and that's prayer. And he's not going to touch me. Oh, he aggravates me. And he's tried to strangle me, and I almost succeeded. He crushed my crucifix in the process of it, but he's not going to stop me. I don't fear him. I do not fear the devil. I just don't underestimate him, because he's smart and he's conniving. When I get a message from Jesus or the Blessed Mother, I ask, discern it, and I ask for confirmation. 3 confirmations, that's truly from them. I never take anything and run with it. I always get confirmations. I just have to be real sure. Why? Because I'm telling people stuff and I can't afford to make a mistake. I love each and every one of you. That comes from my heart. If you only knew what our Lord did to me to make me speak, you would understand why I give my love from my heart. Because when I give you my love, I'm giving you His love. I do love each and every one, and God bless you. And thank you for being so patient. And thank you for your time. I have so much to tell you, so many things that will happen. But everyone will get pictures. Only one of these, please, per family, so there's enough to go around. The married cards, I think that I hate to say that, you can have 5 each. I'm so afraid that I would run out. So maybe you can at least have a couple each. And then the St. Gertrude cards, I know I'm not going to have enough of those. And the confessional things, I may not have enough of those. But if you know a neighbor or you came here with a friend, y'all can make copies of the things on confession and order the St. Gertrude cards. And no, I do not own Mary's Call. I do not work for Mary's Call. I love the people there, Jeannie and Linda, Judy, and I call them all the time. This is where I get my cards. No, if you order them, they're not going to smell like roses. It's something special she did for me, and the smell will dissipate. It comes and it goes when you least expect it. I have people tell me that all the time, and so it's just to catch your attention. It's not the smell that makes them so special. It's what she's doing. I love you all, and thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you so very much, Sondra, and you may appreciate this. This is not an easy job to do, because I always try to exercise most discretion on it. I never want to cut anybody off, because everyone has so much God news to deliver. And obviously, she's a vessel. We know this. I'm standing here and very discreetly holding up a piece of paper that says time. And I'm just standing there, and as I'm standing there, she still didn't see me, and she says, and God told me He never wants me to stop. I said, forgive me, Jesus. But again, God has a sense of humor. But listen, we're tight on time, so you have 15 minutes for dinner. We'll see you in 15. Just kidding. Just kidding. I wanted to get a rise out of you.